Hi.
Hello! Welcome to Q&A number, I'm not exactly sure. Is this like our third one?
This is our third one, absolutely.
This is the first one that we're doing just the two of us.
This is going to be fun.
A small, intimate encounter between two developers and the community.
Aww.
Oh.
So we're talking today about, this is Q&A, questions and answers, right?
Yeah.
And this is for Chapter 9.
Chapter 9, what to expect other than the new killer and the new survivor and the new map and all the regular new goodies.
Which we're not talking about in this video.
No. Let's get right to it.
Q&A!
We didn't introduce ourselves.
No.
I'm Louis McLean, gameplay programmer.
I'm Stefan Horvath, game designer.
Yeah, here's a question from Lord of Limbo via Reddit. The question goes like this. Gens still go very quickly against competent survivors, such that ruin is a necessity. And focusing down a single survivor is the best way to slow them down. Could it be possible that a survivor could receive a repair speed debuff when they're hooked the first time to provide better incentive to target other survivors? And slow the gens enough that only two hooking everyone isn't an automatic DPIP. There's a lot in there. Let's unpack it.
There's a lot in there. Okay, so I believe the points were game goes quite quickly.
Yep.
Killers feel that or some killers at least, feel that they have to resort to tunneling.
Right.
To take killers out. This is a very effective way to take survivors out of the game. Sorry, I said take killers out, take survivors out of the game. So I completely agree with these things. I don't believe that a double hook on every survivor with the new emblem system results in a no pip. That was true for the victory cube.
Yep.
And then there was a comment on ruin being a necessity. For the gameplay to make sure that it's slow enough.
It's definitely possible, and it seems like one of the strongest tools currently available for slowing down a game. I'll definitely give you that.
Yeah, I'd love to see how Slobby Butcher is doing, by the way.
Yeah.
And the other time wasters in our game.
Especially the things that were just recently introduced.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the question being, can we do something of this nature? We talk quite often amongst ourselves here, and with the community as well, and times again through Discord, about the things that we can do to possibly improve the gameplay experience and time efficiency itself. We've looked at things like speeding up the killer pickup time, which was not necessarily wildly received in different ways. Obviously, it has effects on the flashlight. It has effects, more effects than just picking up and time efficiency in the game. It removes some time efficiency from the killer survivors as well, where they have to be, or accentuates it, where they have to be much more accurate.
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about was not necessarily debuffing survivors more, but rather making there be more meaningful interactions for survivors to do that are not just repairing the generator.
Exactly, yeah.
That's really how we'd like to address that, giving survivors more things to do, rather than just making generators take longer.
This is something that we definitely want to look into more. Do we have an answer right now? No.
Yeah, there's nothing specific for this in Chapter 9, but it's something we're definitely looking at for the future.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Here's another one from V Concerned. Any updates on ideas for balancing Survive with Friends and or bringing solo survivors up to their level in the works?
So we've talked in the past about giving Kindred as a base ability. So that when Kindred, the way it works is that if you, the survivor, is running Kindred and you get hooked, you will show a killer if they're within 16 meters of the hook. 8 meters, I believe? 8 meters.
I don't remember the range off my head.
I believe it is 8 meters. I could be wrong. We were talking about buffing it at one point. And it also shows all the other survivors to everyone. What we would like to do with Kindred would make it so that everybody has Kindred equipped by default, not as a perk, but as a base game component, which can be affected by things like open-handed, where it increases your reading range, in the hopes to give enough information to players that simulates kind of what information you'd be getting already from communication, so voice communication mostly, with Survive with Friends. Yeah, I think one of the big points to make, or at least one of the points I'd like to make on the effort to try to bridge this gap between solo and the Survive with Friends component, is Survive with Friends is mostly the voice chat component, where you're able to give you can vocally give information quick enough that it can be used and manipulated in the match. We would like to focus on things that you can vocally transmit as things that can be shared amongst solo survivors. I don't know if this is going to go as far as being as soon as one survivor sees the killer, everybody knows who the killer is. Maybe that's going a little too far with it. Yeah. But for example, the change that we did for the obsession, where the obsession is being chased, everyone sees now that the obsession is being chased.
I found that was a very interesting change. It gave information in an interesting way.
Yeah, I was wondering if we can have. Thank you. I was wondering if we can have like a portrait behind the survivor portrait, but at least some kind of tendrils to indicate that they are in a chase or being engaged, and then you can know and use this information to your benefit.
Yeah, we definitely are on board with trying to bridge the gap a bit between Survive with Friends and solo players, and making it so that it's not such a large difference.
Yeah.
And that will also let us probably balance it a bit better. For example, if players feel that solo groups are too weak, but Survive with Friends groups are too strong, it puts us in a bit of a bind when it comes to figuring out what the power of a killer should be, because we're trying to make it so that everyone has a good experience. Yeah. If you bring those two a bit closer together, then it's easier to bring the killers to where they need to be.
Yeah. This also goes for perks as well.
Yep.
There's some perks that will be like, wow, this is super strong in a group, but individually it has no appeal whatsoever. This is a worry for Decisive Strike in the Change, where you stun the person in place and you don't actually get dropped, allowing for a flashlight save to be effective. This is going to require some knowledge and teamwork that people might not be used to doing in a solo game at the moment.
So we've got another question here from GD Chortle.
GD Chortle.
Currently, the map items hardly ever see use. Are you looking into ways to make these items more appealing? Tracking gen progression or usage meter depletion, no usage meter depletion, could be interesting. So how are we feeling about maps these days?
So there are, I believe, 2 maps at the moment. I could be wrong on this, but I think there's a map and there's a rainbow map.
Rainbow map, which is kind of just the map with all the add-ons already built in.
The rainbow map actually covers objectives instead of just generator. Okay. So I think one of the things to be addressed is that one thing that comes back often is people don't find maps quite often in chests. When they do find a map, it's just the one that finds generators. I believe there are certain components that we've added to the game that perhaps were not readjusted for our old items. I believe a path would be very welcome, and would be a fun way to spruce up some of the item use in our game. Keys and maps are pretty much the biggest guys right now.
I mean, personally, there's a lot of work I want to do on all the Survivor items.
Yeah.
But keys and maps, since they're not seeing any use, or that's an exaggeration, they're not seeing as much use as the other items, would probably be where we'd want to start. Yeah. Since these are items that sort of were built around the idea of giving information.
Which could help for the solo versus Survive with Friends.
Exactly. The concept of, right now there's an add-on for the map that shares the information. Like maybe that we could move more towards that.
By default.
Or maybe that's kind of a little bit too magical. Maybe this is the kind of thing the keys should do, and the maps we should increase their power some other way. Anyway, so yeah, we've been having these kinds of conversations about these items, and hopefully we'll be able to see some results from that before too long. But
absolutely.
It's another thing that will not be in Chapter 9, unfortunately.
Yes, this is the Q&A section.
Yep.
So, do we have more questions?
We do, but I want you to read them to me.
All right, then I'll read you a question.
Here you go. They've got S next to them.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Is Dead Hard? Oh, sorry. This is from Reddit Doors. Is Dead Hard being looked at? Because currently, the invincibility frames are so short that attacks started at the same time will hit anyways. In addition, Dead Hard often bugs out, causing an exhaustion timer to start even when the perk did not activate in time and the survivor was hit. All this combined with a simple counter of just waiting an extra half second before swinging to bait out the Dead Hard makes it a reliable and buggy perk at the moment. You didn't actually say the Dead Hard. I added the Dead Hard. I apologize. Yes.
Definitely hear you about the Dead Hard. Yeah. It's a very precise perk to use for timing, and right now it is very vulnerable to issues with latency.
Absolutely. So did you want to explain exactly what we believe is going on right now?
Why don't you take it away?
I will be happy to. So basically, when you click and activate Dead Hard, you send a message to the killer, who is the server, controlling the match, right? As you send the message to the server, he's already hit you, right? When he says, I've hit, he's pretty much like, yeah, you're good, just tell them that you hit them. So I believe we generate the hit before Dead Hard gets the call.
Right, he may have started attacking roughly the same time that you press the button, but really what happens on the server is what's most important. So from his perspective, he started attacking, he hits you. You had hit the button, but that message hadn't reached him yet. So there are tricks we can do to reduce the effects of latency on.
But one of the biggest things is that it actually puts it on exhaustion, even when it's not successfully used, right? I do believe we can adjust that. And not necessarily make it so that you have an invincibility frames longer for Dead Hard. That is a possibility, right? But at the very beginning, I would like to just remove, I would like to put a stipulation saying that if you were hit during the time that you were activating Dead Hard, that it doesn't go on cooldown. Right. Taking away damage after it's been applied is really weird, so I don't think that's necessarily a solution that we can explore at the moment. Potentially giving you more invincibility earlier, leading into it before shooting you forward could be possible as well. But at the moment, I don't know. I think we're only going to do the, if you get, well, not even for Chapter 9,
right?
For later. We would like to make it so that when you use Dead Hard, it doesn't go on exhaustion when you do get hit before it triggers, or when it triggers, rather. After that, people have talked about having a longer time for invincibility when you use it. This wouldn't actually solve the issue of you being hit.
But it would allow you to activate this thing earlier to try to compensate for latency better.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's ways we can do that. We can have maybe just like a point extra, like just like a quarter time added or half time added to see if it makes a difference. And then the other question, I believe, I'm not sure if it's actually written in here, but it's talking about, we're talking about exhaustion. I know when we mentioned Dead Hard, it might be something good to mention as well. We are still looking at Dead Hard. We haven't done anything for Chapter 9 in terms of adjustments for Dead Hard, but we'll see how it goes for the mid-chapter patch. Yeah. Whether or not we want to do any changes in regards to a longer time, shorter exhaustion cooldown, or whatever kind of changes we would do for Dead Hard.
Not just Dead Hard either. We have our eyes on all of the exhaustion perks.
Life, balance landing, and adrenaline as well.
That's right. Yeah. So there you go. I think we've got one more question.
Uno mas.
From Reddit.
Oh, hey. From Kashar01. Can we have a cancel unhook action if someone is trying to unhook us right in front of the killer? Some survivors just hook farm and want to get "We're gonna live forever" stacks, but it sucks to be the survivor who is hooked right in front of the killer. We do have a cancel heal by just running away from the survivor.
We've had this suggestion many times. We went as far as prototyping kicking people on the hook, kicking people away from you. What we find is that this kind of just shifts the potential for trolling from the person unhooking to the person on the hook.
Oh yeah.
There are lots of other things that we talked about for the hook, and there are some things that are coming in Chapter 9. I'm so glad that we're finally able to bring this back around to stuff that is in Chapter 9.
Yeah.
So there are some really cool things coming to the unhooking scenario in Chapter 9, and I will get to that in just a moment, but we will... Actually, was there any other part of that question there?
So we're talking about the cancel unhook, and we had mentioned specifically the kicking effect that we had tried at one point in time. We see that it's more frustrating than anything else. The other point would be that it is still bothersome.
Yep.
People unhooking you directly in front of the killer's in front of the killer, I guess would be the way to say it. It's difficult because there are situations where if the killer is face camping you, you might not want to let the guy save you just so that it's downed, so someone else has a chance to save you. I do believe it would be shifting the problem quite often. I think we would have to look at camping in general on how we would address just play around the hook, if that makes any sense. Not that saying that camping itself in our game at the moment is the issue, because that's kind of supported with what we've got, but we can find gameplay elements to make it more fun.
I suspect farming people on the hook, this is something that could be looked at. This is something that's not in Chapter 9, but something we started talking about recently. was maybe adjusting things like blood points and we're going to live forever stacks when you farm a teammate.
Yeah.
So it's not very visible. However, currently, if you unhook somebody and that person is down within 10 seconds, the person who unhooked is going to lose a tremendous amount of benevolence points.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great way to tank your emblem score. However, it doesn't really pop up in the middle of the game, doesn't really give you a lot of negative feedback for what you just did. The unhooker. The unhooker gets penalized on benevolence points.
Yeah.
However, at the moment, they still get all the blood points, and they still get we're going to live forever stacks. And for people who are more blood point oriented than, let's say, emblem point oriented, they can get away scot-free with this whole farming and kind of screwing over your teammates and all that stuff. And it definitely feels bad when it happens to you.
Yes.
So something we've been talking about is sort of using the same approach we used for the emblems for the blood point rewards in this regard, so that you wouldn't get those blood points if the person you unhooked immediately went down.
Yeah, and we could, in theory, give you only the token for we're going to live forever if it was a safe unhook.
Right, exactly. Whether it's like waiting to give it to you or giving it to you and then taking it away, whichever, we're not exactly sure. This is still in the early stages of discussion, but this is something that we've been looking at. I feel pretty good about it at the moment, but we want to know what you guys think about that.
Absolutely.
More punishment for people farming teammates on the hook. Okay, so we're going to start with what changed regarding the hook. Brought some footage.
Oh, fantastic.
Of what this now looks like. So the first change was Unhook Animation canceling. So I believe once upon a time, you could run up to a hook and you could start unhooking, and then you see that the killer's coming at you, and you immediately let go and you run away.
Yeah.
And that was pretty neat. And then somewhere along the lines, that probably got bug fixed to death. We were well-meaning, but probably unintentionally changed this gameplay. And now what you currently have on live is that you start your unhook, and you're going to have to complete the whole animation before you're allowed to stop or run off.
Yeah. Well, if you, however much you actually went into the animation, you have to wait to come back out of it.
Right.
Pretty much.
So this has been changed for what you can see now in front of you on the screen. You can do as much of that animation as you want until you've completed it. So as long as you haven't filled that bar, you are free to run off. You can bait or whatever it is you guys want to do with this. Your crew always astounds me.
So it's almost like if you play any fighting games.
Yeah.
It's like a move cancel.
Right.
So you're committing to a punch, and then all of a sudden you're like, nope, and you cancel it, and you go into something else, right? So now you're going to go for the unhook, and you're like, nope, just kidding, and you try to move away. Mm-hmm. I guess this is to go for baiting hooks and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's really cool. If you do complete the charge, so you've completed the bar and you actually are bringing the person off, you have to commit to get them off the hook entirely. Mm-hmm. But during that time, something else has changed.
Oh, tell me.
Which is the person who is being unhooked, the unhookee, they're invulnerable during that period. What's live right now is that while you are being taken off the hook,
during the drop.
Yeah, during the drop, you can't control your character. You can be hit.
This has happened often.
I'm sure it happens to you guys all the time. The killer will come in, will hit you, you'll finish the animation, and then you'll drop to the floor. And that's the point at which you regain control of your character. And I think we all agree that that feels awful.
Yeah.
The change is a small and subtle one so far, which is that until you've gained control of your character, you don't take damage from a hit.
Right. So if I'm coming in as a killer,
yeah,
and you've successfully done the unhook, and the guy has not touched the ground yet,
yeah,
and I hit the guy before he touches the ground, he will not take damage.
That's right.
I will still hit him if he was my priority target. Right. So if I get to the body before I get to the person unhooking, I will hit the body.
So it's just like hitting someone who's on the hook.
Yeah.
You hit them, you blade wipe. Cool. But that person was going to hit the ground, and he's going to be in the injured state, not the crawling state, and will be able to run off. So for killers, they will have to use much more precise timing if they're trying to hit somebody before they run off from the hook.
Does this also apply for Kobe's? Or for unhooking yourself on the hook?
That's a big maybe. It's definitely something
For Chapter 9, it's a big maybe.
For Chapter 9, it's a big maybe. In general, this is something we really want. So regular unhooks have been improved. Self-unhooks, that's coming. There's another change. When you are hooked, exhaustion will be removed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
This may in the future be expanded to the other status effects.
Okay, so blindness, mangled, exposed, they're going to stay on you.
Currently that stuff stays on. We're keeping an eye on it. We might put more time into this and make it so the other status effects are removed as well in the future. We've got some other miscellaneous changes coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, the standing pallet throw animation.
Oh, wonderful.
So we also have some fun footage of that, which we'll run here. When we made the change for pallet vacuums in 2.0,
yes, it's a clown release.
Clown release, Chapter 8. There was a change to the animation that you do when you are standing in front of a pallet as well. We've talked about it, we've looked at it, we've listened to feedback about it, and decided to change it back to the previous animation for that.
Now that standing still palette, as you see in the video, we're just doing a pull down and we're not doing a fancy turn.
Yeah. I think we wanted pallets to be less safe than they were in the age of vacuums, but I think it went too far in that update.
Well, there was a responsiveness that we want to have from pallets
exactly.
as well.
It didn't feel like it was unsafe because things were working the right way. It felt like it was unsafe because it wasn't responding how you would expect.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We want it to feel good. Even if it's unsafe, we want it to feel good. We want you to be able to play it. It should respond to what you do.
Absolutely.
So it should feel a lot better now. Not only does it take less time to get into position to throw the pallet, we've also reduced the delay before the stun happens. So right now on live, the stun is only being applied around the end of the throw, which is a big change from how it was pre-2.0.
The end of the throw meaning that the pallet has dropped.
The pallet has fully dropped. It's like hit the other side. We've changed that to more around the beginning, middle. This is only like a 0.15 to 0.2 second difference. But for players, I think the expression I heard once was with very fast internal clocks. I'm like, this is something they're going to feel. It's going to, for those of you who feel like it's lost some responsiveness, this change should really be noticeable. It should feel like the palette is responding and stunning quicker.
It should speak to you.
It should speak to you, yeah. So that's for the palette. Another thing is reduced bloodlust speed bonus.
Oh, damn.
This is a big one. So this one probably has a big asterisk next to it because it's got to get PTB'd, and if it reveals all kinds of horrible side effects, this might not make it live, but this is something we've been talking about and wanted to try for a long time. So here it is, the test of reduced bloodlust speed. Here's a graph. Numbers. So right now on live, it's 0.2 seconds extra speed after 0.2 meters per second after 15 seconds.
Yes.
0.6 meters per second extra after 30 seconds, and then plus 1.2 meters per second after 45 seconds of chase.
Exactly.
We are changing that as a test to 0.2 after 15,
yes,
0.4 after 30, and 0.6 after 45.
Yeah.
We've talked about reducing the amount of time it takes to build bloodlust in the past. We're not going to test that just yet. It's always an idea that we've got, in our bag of tricks if it becomes necessary. But right now, we just want to test what it looks like when we reduce bloodlust. I think most of us believe that the first two tiers are by far the most relevant anyway, in terms of like making bad chase or fixing bad chase spots, things like that. So it was a weird combination of sort of unfun for the survivor because it's very hard to play around a killer who is moving that fast, and also kind of a bad move for the killer because they had to waste so much time to get it. So it wasn't like the most strategic move for the killers. It kind of felt bad for survivors to play against it. Wasn't all that great all around. So hopefully the new numbers will get the results we're looking for and be a bit less frustrating to play against.
Yeah.
So that's something that we really want to hear what you guys think. Please give it a try or give it a thought. Let us know what you think. When it hits the PTB, give it a try, and then how that works out for you.
Please, yeah.
There's another small point, but I'm personally kind of excited about it. I know it's going to sound very minor. This is the reintroduction of the trap buffering.
Oh yeah.
This is some season 1, some like 2016 Dead by Daylight stuff.
So not only the trapper's coming back, but the trapper tech is coming back.
Exactly. I like the idea of there being more
co-op actions.
Co-op action is another one, but also more just counterplay. Like if a certain character is becoming very popular or very strong, that there are things people can learn to do against it, or things that are good running against it. Safety valves, I guess. Anyway, this is an old little piece of tech. Hopefully, I've got some footage for it here. I haven't actually recorded that yet.
Awesome.
So if nothing shows up, I apologize. So the idea behind trap buffering is that somebody can start disarming a trap, and then that trap will not trap any other survivor who runs over it.
Yeah. So disarming a trap right now is 2.5 seconds, I believe we've increased it to.
That's what I believe.
So the point of this would be that as you disarm and you're holding down the button, another survivor could run through that area, right? And then you can let go and not actually complete the full disarm.
For example, let's say you don't want to take damage from bloody coil.
Yeah.
You could have a buddy start disarming it, and then you can run over it without getting damaged. Stuff like that.
Back in the day, this was very much used for unhooks, because we could trap directly under the hook, and you would have to disarm the trap, otherwise you would always get snapped, right? So what people used to do is that they would actually trap buffer, and then a player would come, be able to unhook directly on top of the trap, and then everyone would be able to run away.
Yeah,
right?
It was pretty neat. So you can't trap a hook that way anymore, but I suspect people will find neat things to do with this trick. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's just a little something from back in the day that was pretty easy and safe to put back in, and I thought this is a fun little piece of counterplay to a killer who I believe is doing pretty well at the moment.
He is doing pretty well. Well, I will have to get stats to make sure that makes any sense.